welcome to reality again. Is this just something else? Wow, I can't believe it. You know, I threw my mask where I didn't throw it away, but I want to throw it away. Anyway, I'm Charlie Guerin. I'm the director of the Bigs. And I have to tell you how much we appreciate that you're here and how much we're enjoying the fact that there are actually people coming out to do things at the museum. And I want to remind you that the museum is open and that you can step inside at any point in time for whatever reason, hopefully to look at the exhibitions and enjoy what's in there. We are really excited about this program. We have done this, what, is this 20? 21 years we've been doing this with the Division of the Arts. And the Division has always been a great partner of ours, not only in that it supports institutions like the Bigs and other arts institutions around the state, but from my perspective as an artist, I think it's great that we have an institution in the state that supports artists, that recognizes that without artists, places like the Bigs wouldn't exist, and a whole lot of other places wouldn't exist. And those of us that work in the arts, both as creative people and as managers of and working with other artists, we wouldn't have anything to do. And I can't imagine a world without what we all do. The people who paint and write and dance and write music and play music, it's remarkable what we do as human beings and what we contribute to each other through this process. So I'm delighted to have everybody here tonight to celebrate what we all do as artists, both visual and literary and performing artists. It's really amazing what we as human beings can accomplish. I'd like to introduce Ryan Grover. This is Ryan. He is the curator of the museum, and Ryan is going to sort of serve as a master of ceremonies in the sense that he's going to introduce each of the artists and performers here this evening. So Ryan, it's all yours.
Hey everybody. So again, my name is Ryan Grover. I am the museum's curator. I did organize the show. If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, come and grab me later. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We do have bottles of water at the front table. Feel free to help yourself to those things. The show will be up during the exhibition or during the ceremony, but also after the ceremony. So, and I'll be wandering around, so you can raise your fist to the heavens or complain or tell us that we're doing a good job or whatever. So with that, I would like to introduce Fostina Dixon, who won one of the fellowships, established fellowship, I believe it is, in jazz performance. Thank you.
And my husband, Todd Kilgore, on drums. I'm Fostina Dixon, and thank you for coming out. And we're going to end this with a song, another song I wrote, entitled Thank You. They're telling me to say I've joked. You don't want to hear my, actually I'm kind of funny. But his music fell, but I'm just not ready for a joke. You look wonderful, okay? And let's give the Bigs a round of applause for having this wonderful event. Brian is so wonderful to me, and he's not listening.
So we decided to only do one musician tonight because why bother doing any more? Thank you, Fostina. Oh my God, she's my favorite. To this day, she still has packed our house here at the museum with a larger audience than any other musician has in our now almost 30-year existence. So she's fantastic, and I think she's still booking shows. So yeah, give her a call. So give me 1 second, but we are going to have Cassandra Lewis up next for literature playwriting. 1 second.
Show I'm currently developing called Making It. It's a coming-of-age comedy about my experience trying to make it as a professional actor and explores several bizarre jobs I had along the way, including my work as a personal assistant for a Juilliard-trained movie star who was big in the 80s and 90s. Ooh. I was 1,875 miles from home, a college freshman, 18 years old, in the New Mexico desert, the land of enchantment. Unlike me, my then boyfriend, we'll call Colin, was a good waiter. He worked at one of the most fancy schmancy restaurants in Santa Fe, and he found out by looking at the reservation book that my favorite actor would be attending a private party at his restaurant. So on that spring night in 1997, he called me up and told me. He kind of had to, though, because everyone knew this actor, whom we'll call Bud Snakeman, was my all-time favorite. I even had a life-size poster of him taped to the ceiling of my dorm room. So that night, I called in sick to my restaurant job and put on a black halter top and my nicest black pants and heels, a rarity for me even back then. I always thought to help you keep your balance, high heels should come with a matching pair of ski poles. But somehow I strutted to that restaurant and arrived just as the sun was setting. The sky was the color of possibility. I was not yet old enough to drink legally, but I knew the bartender who allowed me to sip a Coke at the bar and gaze at Bud Snakeman, who was sitting out on the courtyard. I would have been content just sitting in the same restaurant with him. I wasn't expecting to get any closer. That's what I thought, until the band started playing, though they were nowhere near as great as Fostina's band. And who can sit still when live music is playing under a Santa Fe sky? I danced all across the courtyard, alone and with whomever was nearby. One gentleman I danced with that night was over 6 feet tall, had a South African accent and long, shaggy hair. He seemed like someone I would know, a hippie. I was surprised when he sat down next to Bud Snakeman. I kept dancing and pretended not to notice the two of them looking at me. After a while, when I glanced in their way, Bud Snakeman waved me over. I decided right then to play it cool. I would not let on that I knew who he was or act in any way that suggested he was any different from anybody else. We're all human, I kept reminding myself. He stood up, introduced himself, and gave me his chair at the head of the table. He sat beside me and ordered another round of margaritas. For once, no one asked for my ID. That night, we talked about a range of things: fossils, our favorite places to hike, camping, and our favorite plays. I was careful not to tell him I was an aspiring actor. I thought he might respect me more if I told him about my interest in writing plays. I didn't think he would understand that I was both an actor and a writer. People always seemed confused if you had more than one calling. So I went with writing that night. It seemed like a smart idea until he introduced me to a much older man who turned out to be a world-renowned playwright who'd even won a Tony Award. What could I possibly say in that moment other than, wow, nice to meet you? I was just finishing my first year of college, barely an adult, barely literate. So I did what I did best back then. I kept drinking. At one point, the movie star invited me to go with him and his hippie friend to a midnight screening of some movie I'd never heard of and wasn't even sure if it existed or if this was one of his practical jokes. So I politely declined, which cracked him up. You'd think no woman had ever turned him down before. I told him my boyfriend was one of the waiters. On my third or fourth margarita, Bud asked me where I was working, and I told him about the 2 restaurants where I worked as a hostess and a busser because I was still too young to serve alcohol. That's when he asked me if I wanted to be his personal assistant. At this, my guard was up. Sure, I'd had a poster of him on my ceiling, but he wasn't a real person then. He was an ideal, a series of unrelated characters. But in real life, he was a man more than twice my age getting me drunk. So I asked him, what exactly does this job entail? He found my cynicism amusing, and after laughing about it, he finally gave me a sincere answer that described shopping mostly, and some household duties, including child and pet care. I accepted the job. He gave me his phone number and told me to call him the next day. Of course, I called my whole family. At the time, I, quite foolishly, believed I just might be on the brink of making it. Thank you.
Our next writer tonight will be Terry Miller. She is here for literature, creative nonfiction. In 1 second, we're going to have one quick technical difference. Don't worry, Cassandra, you said it great.
Thank you. Hi. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Hi. This is awesome. This is awesome. First of all, my name is Terry Miller, and it's such an honor to be here this evening. I want to thank the folks at the Biggs Museum and also the folks with the Delaware Division of the Arts, and also our state legislators who support the arts through this amazing grant. And that's right, shout out to those elected officials, right? They're supporting the arts, understanding the importance of the arts in our communities to make them more vital so that we can learn, we can be entertained, we can create, and that's good for all Delawareans. And so anyway, just hats off to everybody. Let me just talk a bit. I'm going to be reading tonight an excerpt from a chapter in a book, a soon-to-be-published book. We have Stephen Jarrett is here this evening. He is my developmental editor. And hands up, Stephen. And if you want to write a good book, he's your guy. And Mary Ellen, my wife and my life and my love is here. So anyway, I wanted to say something about the book. So the title of the book is Behind God's Back, Finding Hope in Hardship. And basically, just generally speaking, it's a good news story, right? That as the title might refer, there were difficulties in my life and hardship in my life that I had to get over before I got to the hope, right? And that's true for all of us, right? We all have hardships in our lives, sometimes tragedies, sometimes trauma. In my case, it was trauma from the time that I was a young child. And the big ticket items are that I grew up, with poverty and hunger and abuse, and neglect, addiction, all of those kinds of things. And I had to slog through all of that before I was able to get to the silver lining in the cloud. And I think that's true for all of us, right? We go through hardships and we hope to get to the other side of them and find something good that came out of it, right? To try to make some sense out of it. So basically, that's what the book's about. And really, it's about, you know, you know, that there is an inherent healing process that happens. And for me, that healing process happened over the 16 years that it took me to write this book. But I think that healing also happens in the interactive space between the writer and the reader. And though our lived experiences may not be the same, our emotional response to lived experiences often is the same. We all know loss, we all know regret, we all know pain, we know anguish, those kinds of things, right? And so, so in that way, it's a universal bond that we all have in some way. So, so this book really is about a journey that I made back to myself, right? And in that process, the traumas that I experienced as a child, in this process, I was able to right-size the trauma so that the trauma could inform my life, but not be my life, right? Right? And that's true for all of us. When we go, we are so much more than those difficult things that we experience in our lives. We're so much more than that. And that's what this book is about. It's about getting back to the prize of our intrinsic spiritual essence, if you will. This is from chapter 3 of Behind God's Back, Finding Hope in Hardship, entitled Peaches. Mama sipped her 7 and 7 out of her favorite highball glass and told me we needed to talk. She said that my best friend, Patty Reavers, had moved to Cleveland, and our old neighbors from the projects, Bessie and Chester, had moved on too. I knew what she was getting at. Now you know Patty is gone from those projects, and now you don't have any excuse to be going back there like you do, thinking I don't know about it. Miss Bessie and Chester, they're gone too. Everybody's finding their way to a new and better life, just like us, she said. She inhaled her Winston 100, already red and bleary-eyed from her drink. I sat there, sinking, staring, fighting back tears. What better life, I wondered. I couldn't help but privately compare their love for me with Mama's love. I was left with her version. I silently watched as crucibles of molten steel at the Jones and Laughlin mill traveled across the hot metal bridge to the furnace on the other side, stacks all ablaze and setting the sky aglow. I wished I could be carried off into that light too. I didn't want to be where I was. I really didn't want to be alive anymore. The siren went off at the fire station atop Echo Street and shocked me back into the moment. With tears welling up in my eyes, surrounded by fires on the horizon and periphery, I turned to express a futile protest against Mama's news about Patty, Miss Bessie, and my other friends. But as I did, my heart sank to see that Mama too now was gone. Without a word or a sound, she had vanished into the night. She had a habit of delivering bad news to me when she drank, leaving me to absorb the impact alone and without knowing if it was true or not. I sat there on the inky wall, staring down into the abyss below me. It was about a 40-foot drop, and I wondered if anyone would miss me if I just leaned forward into the darkness and plummeted onto the rocks below. My head was numb and racing at the same time. My daddy had left a long time ago, and my brother Eddie was spending more and more time at his place. Everyone was slipping off into the night without a word or even the slightest echo of a goodbye. I wondered if I could do the same. Alone in the chill of the night, I shifted over into Mama's seat. It was still warm where she had sat. I claimed it quickly, absorbing the residue of her presence, atoms and molecules of heat still in motion. Dazed, I reached into the ashtray for Mama's half-smoked Winston. I lifted it to my mouth. I had never smoked before, but that night I sucked every last bit of smoke out of that cigarette and flicked the butt into the air as though I had been smoking all my life. It blended perfectly with the soot, the fire, and the smoke around me. On the stoop sat Mama's 7 and 7. I lifted it to my nose. It smelled strong. It smelled bad. It smelled inviting. I slugged it down hard and fast like I had seen the men do at Stan's Cafe. The gesture reminded me of wartime films in which doctors quickly applied a tourniquet to a wound to remedy the pain by making it invisible, cloaked, and smothered. A blast of heat from the highball rose up in my belly, and I felt at peace with the fire that rose up out of the stacks from the mill. My head raced, and in the swell of my belly, the initial rush of fire cooled to a soft glow, and a sense of calm washed over me. Within minutes, like magic, my loneliness and fear were replaced with a feeling of well-being. The void that had consumed me just moments earlier was replaced with a tranquility and serenity I had never experienced before in my 8 years of life. Woozy, I relaxed and settled into this newfound pleasure. I looked at the empty tumbler and I noted to myself, this has magic. And in that blink of an eye, I had found a new best friend, a concoction with mysterious powers that made me think, maybe, just maybe, I can make it here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. So next is the highlight of the evening is the awards ceremony is going to happen in next, and I would like to bring up to the stage Paul Wheatgraff. I think that it's probably common knowledge at this point, or perhaps not common knowledge, but open knowledge, that this is actually Paul's last ceremonial awards for the award winners. He has been director. He's been director of the DDOA for for as long as I've been putting this show on here at the Biggs Museum. So this is a very long time. And but Paul is moving on from that position. I can't even look at him. I'm a little overwhelmed. But I won't dwell on that. But I will bring Paul up and we'll start the award ceremony. So, just so that we can tell the folks at home, are we having people come up and receive awards? Are we doing sort of the photo op this time?
As long as people are comfortable coming up. Yes.
So if you would like it in your hand with a little sort of commemorative photograph, come on up to the stage when your name is called. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. First of all, I'd like to thank Charlie Guerin and Ryan Grover at the Biggs for hosting this for a number of years now. It's the 21st year, I believe, right? So thank you. And we're pleased that we got the weather that we ordered for tonight. We're here tonight to celebrate the arts, certainly, but more importantly, we're here to celebrate the artist. Paraphrasing a bit, Pablo Picasso said, "We are all born artists. The challenge in life is continuing to be an artist when we grow up." Congratulations, you did it. This is such a wonderful opportunity to celebrate you, the artist. There would not be a museum if it weren't for artists. There would be no symphony or choral group or band if it weren't for musicians and composers. There would be no ballet if it weren't for dancers and choreographers. There'd be no theater if it weren't for actors and writers and directors. It is the artist that is the core, the foundation of the arts. And that's why the Division of the Arts historically has found a priority in celebrating the artist through fellowships. And we're here tonight to honor 25 artists who have risen to the top in a highly competitive process through an application process demonstrating the quality of their work to jurors from around the country who have reviewed your work and found you to be of high quality and recommended for this kind of support. We are so proud to support the work of Delaware artists each year, and particularly this group this year, representing a wide range of artistic disciplines in the masters, established and emerging categories. It really is a delight to be here with you and to celebrate the work that you do and what you contribute to our lives. It is the artist who conveys meaning through creating and through conveying knowledge that cannot be conveyed in any other way. I have to say, in a former life, I was a history teacher, and I always found it fascinating to look at the work of my students who were also accomplished artists and musicians, and watching the work that they did outside of the academic classroom, but rather what they did in the art room or in the band room, and what they were able to communicate through that passion of that creative life and component of their lives. Always I found to be invigorating for me as a classroom teacher. And I think what you do is you bring to life here in Delaware that same spark, that energy, that same creative spirit to the cultural life here in Delaware. Civilizations come and go. They are always remembered first and foremost for the cultural legacy that they leave behind. And that's what all of you contribute, not only to Delaware, but to our nation, bringing meaning to our lives at a time when meaning is so important, bringing us together in a way where that is so important. So I want to thank you for what you do in your art, what you contribute, and what you share with us, your passion, your love, your creativity. And now I think Roxanne is going to help me in presenting certificates. Again, I invite you, as we call out your name, to come forward so that we can present you with a certificate and get a picture taken with you. Picture of you is more important. Okay. Starting with the Masters category for Artistic Excellence in Music Composition, Jennifer Margaret Barker. In the established category for Artistic Excellence in Jazz Performance, which you witnessed this evening, Fostina Dixon. For Artistic Excellence in Visual Arts Painting, Howard J. Eberly. I believe he is not here, but we want to recognize him anyway for Artistic Excellence in Folk Art Visual Arts, Nicoma Frederick. Michael, are you accepting for Nicoma? State Arts Council member Michael Kamba. Not only a great member of the council, but an incredible supporter of artists in Delaware. For artistic excellence in literature fiction, Mara Gorman. For artistic excellence in music solo recital, violinist, Eleazar Gutmann. Who I believe is not here tonight, so I have another certificate for my wall at home. For artistic excellence in visual arts crafts, Harold Kalmus. For artistic excellence in visual arts, works on paper, Kim Claby. For artistic excellence in visual arts sculpture, Jack Knight. For artistic excellence in literature playwriting, Cassandra Lewis. For artistic excellence in dance choreography, Dr. Jamie McCrae. Jamie did not pivot to adapt to COVID, she pirouetted. For artistic excellence in literature poetry, Jane C. Miller. For artistic excellence in literature, and I've always loved this oxymoron, creative nonfiction, Terry Miller. For artistic excellence in folk art music, Richard Raw. For artistic excellence in visual arts photography, Eric W. Zippy. Before moving to the emerging professional category, I should point out that in recognition of the accomplishments of these artists, the Fellowship Award is for the Master's Fellow, a $10,000 fellowship award, for the established professionals, a $6,000 award, and for the emerging professionals, a $3,000 award, to be used to help the artists further their career. I will say this, Delaware is one of the few states that even since the recession back in 2008, 2009, we have sustained the Artist Fellowship Program when many states can't wipe them out. As I mentioned early on, the artists are the foundation of the arts, and we felt it's important to maintain that commitment to artists. Now moving into the emerging professional category, in recognition of artistic excellence in literature fiction, Anne Marie Brzezowski. Who is not with us tonight. We'll get their certificates to them. For artistic excellence in visual arts crafts, Sherry Dierkes. Dierkes. It's written right here, phonetically. My wife tells me, read the entire thing.
It's okay, it's true. He never knows.
Here, let's clear the mic. For artistic excellence in visual arts, works on paper, Siobhan Dugan. For artistic excellence in visual arts painting, Denise Eno Ernest. For artistic excellence in visual arts photography, Jason Jellick. For artistic excellence in literature, creative nonfiction, Carrie Sz. Keane. For artistic excellence in jazz composition and one heck of a percussionist, Todd Kilgo. For artistic excellence in literature poetry, Jack Makey. For artistic excellence in folk art, visual arts, Teresa Angela Taylor. For artistic excellence in literature playwriting, Njideka O. Wiggins. And that concludes the presentation. Let's hear it for all of the artists. Now, I believe the Biggs is still open if people want to go upstairs and see the exhibition. Just in closing, I want to share with you one other little tidbit. It was Michelangelo who said something, and I paraphrase, that the test of great sculpture is that it can roll downhill unbroken. So my charge to all of you artists, continue creating art that survives rolling down the hills of life. Thanks for coming tonight.
So we actually have two more writers to come up, but the museum will be open as soon as that's over with. And I'd like to bring up to the stage Carrie Sz. Keane. I apologize for having to drag you all the way back up here again. Maybe I should just bring the mic to you. But while Carrie is on her way up here, I want to just take a second to thank Roxanne Stanulis for this evening. She might have actually gone hiding in the museum already. But I think that we're all pretty intimately aware that Roxanne's the person who gets all of us here to these blankets today through the application process, through the judging, through the awards. She keeps me organized. And I have to admit, the idea of the award winners exhibition here at the Biggs Museum wasn't even my idea. It was Roxanne's idea when she was curator here. So, Carrie Sz. Keane.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, so I wrote creative nonfiction. I write creative nonfiction, and it's very vulnerable for me to read to a group of people because I'm writing the truth. And I write about vulnerable subject matter. I'm a midwife and I write about birth. So I'm nervous. I'm writing a memoir. It's mostly finished. But I feel so vulnerable that I almost want to wait till I die to publish it. There are some working titles: What to Expect When You're Not Expecting to Be Expecting, The Elephant in the Womb, A Midwife Crisis, or Labor and Deliverance. I'm not writing a happy story of pink bows and blue elephants. I'm writing the truth. And thank you for listening. I don't really know these people, other than from a rushed 15-minute visit in an office setting with bad art and fluorescent lighting. I've maybe met them once in a 9-month span, and yet here I am at the birth of their child, in their most vulnerable business, an observer of their painting, witness to their intimacies. It seems these two, the mother and the father, barely know each other either. They don't laugh, they're not even touching. He doesn't pet her hair or tuck the covers under her chin. I can tell that Kara doesn't get along with her mother-in-law-to-be. They roll their eyes a lot. The future mother-in-law keeps saying, "Been there, done that," and I roll my eyes. She has had one child, which means she has only done this once. I have been to thousands of births, thousands, but I have not given birth myself, so I have not been there or done that. Clara is literally naked in front of us, exposed, bare-assed, and embarrassed. It is 3:13 a.m., it is pouring down rain. The room smells like peanut butter and menthol smoke. I should have worn a sweater. Today is the vernal equinox. Vernal would be a good name, but then everybody would call him Vern. Equinox is nice, or March. It is March, if it's a girl. Even spring is nice, or rain. I was tucked into my own bed 4 hours ago by my own loving husband. When I got called in for Clara's birth, I left him sound asleep. He didn't even hear my phone ring. The dogs only lifted their head barely. They may have rolled their eyes. I tiptoed out, turned out the hall lights, tripped on the floor mat, started the car, BBC on the radio, drove to the hospital, the same route, new road, watching for deer, following the moon. Today is the point at which the ecliptic intersects the celestial equator. It is becoming verdant outside. Everything is awakening, and I am awakening. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Verdant means green, but it also means truth. Hey, Vern, it's Ernest. Ernest is a nice name, such a strong name, so serious and sincere. No one names their baby Ernest anymore, but it also means truth. I am making an earnest living, that's for sure, but the truth is I'm tired, perhaps deliriously so. I have to be back in the office at 8 a.m. to see patients. I can't stand that stupid Chinese painted fan on the wall of the exam room. I don't even know these women, but I'm losing sleep for them. On my drive, I'm thinking about the seeds I planted earlier. I'm thinking about the method of exposing seeds to low temperatures, called vernalization, in order to hasten the flowering. Perhaps if I turn the thermostat in the room down, I can hasten this delivery and get back to bed. Maybe that's why the hospital rooms are always so damn cold. Flowering buds are like births. There is a kind of blossoming, a blooming. The swirl of hair on the top of the baby's head as it is crowning is like the unspiraling of a rosebud, like a Fibonacci sequence, like a fiddlehead fern. I don't know. What I do know is that fear equals tension, equals pain, and it is somehow my job to put them at ease, not to judge, to simply to be with them, to watch this unfurling, to midwife, to succor, to care. But I don't always. Not right now, even though my name is Care. The irony. Each room is a story, a novel, a painting, each patient a character, and I am the narrator. Her breath smells bad. Here's a mint. Her skin is dry, and she keeps scratching her thighs. Here is some lotion. I noticed that the lotion is called Carrie. So very kismet. There is a reason for every damn thing. A reason that I am here, that this baby is coming today, right now, on the first day of spring. There is a reason that Theda keeps getting pregnant, even though she doesn't have a car and her boyfriend lives in prison. She rides her riding lawnmower to her appointments, and the receptionist calls her the Da. There is a reason that Candy is 23 years old, 14 weeks pregnant with her third child, and is caring for both her 10-year-old brother because both of her parents are incarcerated, and her 5-year-old nephew because her sister was in a car accident. She works as a waitress. She tells me she has anxiety. There is a reason that I am here to hear these stories. There is a reason, and I'm supposed to write them down.
Our last presentation tonight is by Jack Makey, here for literature and poetry.
Like your Ryan.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I promise I won't read the whole book. Thank you to the Division of the Arts, the Biggs Museum. Shout out to my husband, Brad, my support and inspiration. I'm going to start by reading a poem from the anthology that's from the Eastern Shore Writers Association. It's called Beta Ocean, and I wrote this poem last year early in the pandemic, although at the time we didn't know it was that early. And I think I was not the only one trying to bake bread, trying to shop for yeast and flour unsuccessfully. This poem is titled Pandemic Blues Day 43, in which I invite the germs in. I busy myself making sourdough starter, involving ingredients I don't have to shop for, flour and water, and hope. A few sympathetic microbes will fly into my kitchen, alive and ready to work. Leaven this flat feeling that our lockdown would last what's left of my life. I'm doing whatever keeps me from sleeping all day, drinking too much. On YouTube, the helpful man uses just a measuring cup, eschews a digital scale and all its romantic precision. Just eyeball it. Leave something to chance, he says. This recipe for anarchy, his casual approach, suits me fine. I think of all the things you can do just good enough. Like life. Chug along for years without a plan. Dump tinker toys onto the carpet, knowing a few pieces are lost, and make what you can. Or take a road trip in an old car with squiggly lines, with squiggly line signs to warn you of a cliff, but not when you'll meet it. A carefree journey marked by ambitious symbology, open to interpretation, open to hope. So when the gloppy mess goes rancid after a few days, I pour it down the drain, mix a new batch of chaos, lid the jar loosely, open a window, and welcome in the air from outside. For the last couple of days, I had a friend visit me who I haven't seen in a while, and I wrote this poem about him a while ago when I last saw him, when he was very sick. Now he's doing much better. He's had a kidney transplant, and we had a very fun visit. But the last time I saw him, it was before he even had the operation and wasn't sure he would survive. It's titled In California on Vacation, I Visit a Friend. No more the cycles we spun through, dinners we laughed through, no hunting, no gathering. What a wingman you were. Sunday waking to your dawn calls for help, your car keys lost somewhere in the night, your phone stolen by someone you fell for. We were late arrivers then, nearly 50, life reopening, mine like a ski slope, yours a cathedral window, convinced we caught the updraft, soaring, rose-colored clouds, edges singed by the flames we'd seen. Here tonight in your house on the hill, up from the shimmering bay, a sailboat, a dark triangle against a blazing autumn sun, slipping quietly. Your eyes hollowed out now by pain you're trying to hide, the machine you need in your bedroom out of sight. You speak of a childhood friend. I picture how that call went. You, desperate for another flight, a 60-year-old donor better than none. Gambling outdoes certainty when certainty is unthinkable. Did you have to beg? We both get quiet. I stare at the silence melting in my glass. We're both relieved you never called me, never put me on the spot, placed a chip there. Over your shoulder, the light drops beneath the blue-black horizon. I want to say thank you, but how would that sound? I come from a large family, and this is a story about how we all came together. The last time I think we were all together. It's titled, Fused Together, We Scatter Them. In a photo on my mantle, faded green shingles of a ghost house left decades ago, an Irish brood, adult cutouts against a cyclone fence, standing in a grassless open field of sibling rivalries, temporary alliances, dried out tears from softball games lost. A sweet spring morning, we restart interrupted dreams, clutching vessels from my sister's safekeeping. 7 urns, Ziploc plastic. Our bare hands scoop, unclench, our fists toss skyward, as freeing a bird, their incense-infused triturate, commingled, taken by breezy sunlit spirals, wafting through air saturated in magnolia, over this park, this extended backyard of our childhood, hopes and disappointments. Some, settling like dust, shine on our shoes, then whooshed away into the sparse blades, our empty fingers with gratitude pointing towards an open field. The photo snapped, the grandchildren comforted, a generation returned to the earth. We fly away to our bi-coastal homes, the music done, the reason for convening resolved. The next reunion for one of us. And I'll end on an upbeat. A lot of my poetry is about death. This is about resurrection, so maybe I'm redeemed. How I became a superhero. Leaning low, the vet said that Henry the hamster was probably already old when Santa left him. No surprise then that night, curling himself into a furry round, dirty brown ball, expired early in his cage before my daughter awoke. Never made it to Easter. It was Good Friday, after a furtive, soundless 5 a.m. burial. Her little hand in mine. After breakfast, we stepped to a moist brown mound of overturned earth. A good time for a lesson. Yes, everyone does. Yes, but not for a very, very long time. Nothing to worry about now. What lesson then, when I drove up later and she led me by the hand to that dry ground? Daddy, look. There he sat, nose twitching, on top of a freshly dug tunnel, looking around, then staring straight at me as if to say, really? I remembered, really, hamsters burrow. That is, live hamsters burrow. Quick thinking, I told a story about how I'd brought him back, stifling further lessons and resurrection metaphors that were begging to be released. When he died for good a few weeks later, I rolled him in a ball of fluorescent green Easter grass, hurled him into the woods, said he ran away, glanced nervously over out the window. Thank you.
Thank you again to all the presenters tonight, and of course the exhibition is open, so I'll see you upstairs. Thank you.